The station where our veterans' voices are heard. MBR Talk.
Hey, thanks for supporting our channel by watching and listening.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Desde Brooklyn hasta el sol del Medio Oriente, José Flores con fuego en la mente. Raised in the Bronx where dreams don't sleep, donde el hambre te enseña a resistir. Section 8 life, no handouts, no cheat. He built his power from the pain on the street.
Cada golpe, cada lágrima caída fue el fuego que encendió su vida. Ahora camina con propósito y voz. José Flores, hear the noise. De la calle al combate, turned his trials into faith. Con disciplina y con fe, now he rises every day. From the black to the world sin temor.
You ever need a haircut?
So
that these kids can learn how to play instruments or want to, not just learn, but want to. But I think that there's a major shift.
Iraq to Korea, he led from the front. Now he lifts others, never just stunts. Hoy es mentor, líder, amigo.
Mi gente, welcome to the Motivated Mindset with me, your host, Jose Antonio Flores. I won't go into the rest of the names, but hey, I'm glad that you're here. Thank you for coming. I am a proud Latino born in New York City. Yay, yay. Thank you for coming out. Straight out of the Bronx, raised in Brooklyn, or I was raised Crooklyn, right? That New York flavor, mi gente, that hustle, right? That grit. Thank you very much. That shaped me, built me, and still drives todo lo que yo hago, everything that I do today. In this chapter of my life, I wear many different hats other than this cool one. Thank you very much. I'm a motivational speaker, a certified personal trainer, a certified mediator, also, repeat, and an end-of-life death doula. But, you know, behind all those titles, there's one mission, and that's to serve mi gente, to serve people, because I know what struggle feels like. You know, I know the pain when people go through stuff, to fight your way toward a purpose. You know, every day my mission is simple: to inspire, to uplift, to challenge, right? To remind people that no matter where you come from, no matter what life throws at you, you can always redefine your life through faith, discipline, resilience. And that's the reason this podcast exists. The Motivated Mindset is where we talk about resilience, culture, healing, leadership, discipline, optimism, and the courage it takes to keep moving. Cuando la vida te da bien duro, when life hits you real hard, because we try to keep it real here, New York City real, right? Straight talk, you know. And I'm also a combat veteran who probably served for 30 years in the United States Army. And before we get rolling, I want to send a powerful salute to all my veterans, service members, and first responders that are listening. Mucho respeto, a lot of respect. You already know that. You know, today's conversation we're going to have is especially meaningful to me because it takes me back to my childhood growing up in the Bronx. You know, it took me a lot of way back. When I was a kid we lived in Section 8 housing in the Bronx. One of the things that I look forward to, other than the softy ice cream, was the mobile libraries that came into our neighborhood. And for many of us, those books, man, te digo, those pages, those pictures, man, they were opportunities. Those books opened doors. They took this kid from the Bronx, places I had never seen before. They sparked my imagination. They introduced me to different cultures, different people, you know what I'm saying, and different possibilities. Most importantly, they helped me dream beyond the environment that I was living in, that I was growing in. You know, I have to say that looking back, I realized those books shaped my future. They sparked a love for reading. They helped me succeed in school. I joined the United States Army and eventually traveled the world. I got to experience places and culture I never could have imagined as a child, right? And for me, it all started with access to books. You know, that's why I'm so passionate about today's topic and today's guests. Every child deserves the opportunity to discover the power of reading. Every child deserves access to books that inspires them, educates them, encourages them, and helps them see themselves in stories they read, right? And before we begin, one last thing. If you feel the vibe, you know, if you feel what you hear today, if this conversation inspires you, if you appreciate, como se dice, the energy, thank you very much, and the message, right? I ask one thing: scan that code. Supporting my YouTube channel. I'm gonna put it in the chat thing real quick, because that's how we move forward. That's how we do the things that we do. And it's been so good, the support that you all give us, you know, and hit a like, but and hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. And you know what? Share this interview with someone who can use a little bit of motivation, right? Because your support helps us to continue to bring powerful guests, meaningful conversations, and purpose-driven content straight para ti, para ustedes. You know what I'm saying? All right, family, we're about to get into it. I'm about to bring you on. Now, let's talk about today's guest, mi gente, right? So my guest today is a visionary, a leader, a technologist, entrepreneur, and champion for literacy and mentorship. Jahmal Lake is the founder and executive director of Our Kids Read, a national nonprofit dedicated to helping children in underserved communities discover the joy and the power of leyendo, of reading. With more than 20 years of experience as a software engineer and technology leader, Jahmal has combined innovation, education, and community impact to address one of our nation's greatest challenges, literacy. His mission is simple, but muy fuerte, muy powerful, right? To connect millions of children who are struggling with reading to millions of adults who are willing to mentor, encourage, and help them succeed. Inspired by his late mother, Obi Lake, who dedicated more than 50 years to social justice and education, Jahmal founded Our Kids Read in 2019. And since then, the organization has partnered with companies including Microsoft, Amazon, Nike, Dell, Hallmark, and they have donated more than 50,000 books and positively impacted the lives of over 20,000 children across the country. Before founding Our Kids Read, Jahmal also created Imagine Access, a nonprofit that introduced young people of color to coding, graphic design, and digital storytelling, demonstrating his lifelong commitment to creating opportunities for underserved youth. Today, we'll discuss about the power of mentorship, the importance of literacy leadership, and how one person's vision can create lasting change in communities across America. Please help me welcome to the Motivated Mindset, Jahmal Lake.
The interview of the week is brought to you by Jersey Mike's, a sub above.
Welcome, Jahmal. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you. I'm inspired by your energy, Jose. And you're a living testimony to the work that we do.
No, gracias. No, it's like many of our people, it's been quite a trip, but it was worth it, you know. And I just want to say gracias for being here, and as we talk before we go into your organization, tell us who Jahmal is, where you're from, who are you?
Sure. So I was born in Washington, D.C., grew up. My mom went to Cornell, so we were growing up in Ithaca, New York, and then she got a teaching job in Iowa. She was actually, I know of all places, right?
Iowa, yeah.
She was a professor there for about 10 years. Most of my career, I was an IT guy. I have two boys, 15 and 19. We live in Laurel, Maryland right now, and I'm the executive director of Our Kids Read.
Wow. So when you was growing up, did you ever, what were some of your dreams? What were you thinking of doing before you even, how was that?
So my life was it was not traditional at all, right? Because I was a child of an anthropologist, we were all over the world. So I went to 7th and 8th grade in Accra, Ghana. I went to Christ the King International School. I went to an elementary school. I grew up in the West Indies in Jamaica. And people think about Jamaica and the beaches. I mean, Jamaica, like Kingston,
Right,
downtown,
right.
the real Jamaica.
Yeah.
And so it changes your perspective, right? When you grow up outside of this country, you're not spoiled. Sometimes you're killing your own food. You're walking
Yeah.
5 miles to get water. So like that formed my desire to be somebody who like made a global change, right? It actually
Yeah.
changed people's access to resources because I saw how little people had. And I think in this country, we grow up kind of in a silo, right? We grow up thinking that everybody has what we have. And then we go to other countries and we're shocked,
Yeah.
right? But I saw that from a very young age, that how people were struggling and really just fighting to survive, right? And I think that really shaped kind of what I wanted to do as a career.
Wow. And as you look back, how we say, what's one lesson from your childhood that como se dice, still guides you today?
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson is just the importance of hustle. And it was funny, I heard your intro, and you were you were very clear that that was core to who you were.
Yeah.
But we grew up very poor, right? Very, very poor. Public assistance for the first maybe 10, 15 years of my life. So I was out there mowing lawns. I was working at the grocery store. I was, creating my own raffles by going to the local restaurants, getting prizes, right? Knocking on thousands of doors. So I think that was the biggest lesson, is that nobody's going to give you anything. And I think that also shaped a lot of what we do now, with Our Kids Read, is that you really have to take the bull by the horns and get out there and do something.
Well, no, that you're right. That hustle is real, man. And as we move forward, why do you believe reading is so much more than just learning words on a page?
Reading is fundamental to everything. Reading is fundamental to health, right? It's fundamental to community. It's fundamental to how we interact with each other, our understanding of, you could go to the grocery store, understanding of nutrients. You go to the doctor, understanding of how to take care of yourself.
Yes.
And you go to get a job, the understanding of what the steps are you need to take to get the job done, right? And it's core to citizenship, right? It's core to democracy. It's core to knowing who you want leading you. And I think people underestimate the importance of literacy. I don't know if you heard the stats that close to 80% of children in low-income communities are functionally illiterate by the end of elementary school.
Wow.
80%.
Wow.
Between 70 and 80%. So before I got into this space, I had no idea, right?
Yeah.
But once I started diving deeper, I said, this is criminal. And it's not accidental, right? There are systems in place that keep this stat the way it is. People are always scratching their heads. I wonder why things are changing. It's because the system was designed to create a functionally illiterate populace, right?
Wow, no, that I didn't know that till you just said that number. That is, it is criminal. You're right. And growing up, like, it wasn't. I didn't even know when they talked about red lighting. In where we lived at, in certain places we could only live, but that also took into account the type of education we got, which was not good.
Absolutely. I think there is hope, though. I think that's the reason why I quit my job and made this decision that, hey, there's something we can do. We always talk about, schools need to do better, government needs to do better, the politicians, whomever. We have power. And I think that's what, I'm not going to get into conspiracy theories, but that's what whoever, the society, let's just say, doesn't want us to recognize our power and doesn't want us to recognize our collective power. I think as individuals, we might not be as powerful, but as a unit, right, we're incredibly powerful.
Yeah. And before, like I was reading your bio, before Our Kids Read, you founded the Imagine
Access. Yeah, that was interesting. So I lived in Harlem from like 98 through 2001.
Yeah.
I was 137th and Lenox, right across from Harlem Hospital.
Yeah.
And the Harlem Y was right around the corner, right? So I met a brother there by the name of A.D. Harris from Easy A.D. and the Cold Crush. I don't know if you're familiar with the Cold Crush, but anyway, he was the director of youth services there. And he invited me to, I said, A.D., I said, there's got to be a way for us to get these kids interested in programming and in coding. And he said, we started working on this program where kids would write poetry and they would take that poetry and they would animate it. Right. So if it was a poem about a bird, they would put a bird on the screen and have the bird fly across the screen, and then the words would kind of accompany that motion. And so the idea was take something that they're passionate about and have them turn it into a piece of art. Right. And it was incredibly successful. We kind of put it down after a while, but while it was in play for about 2 years, it was incredibly successful.
Wow. We have a comment from Gonzalez, my girl, not just literacy,
Yes.
even housing.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. When we lived in the Bronx, it was terrible. It was, but I didn't know it. I didn't know it until I left. And saw that people could leave normal. It's like, because the South Bronx, in the late 70s, 80s, it was burning, nothing but, we had no parks. It was just crazy.
Yep.
It was just wild. And we have somebody from a LinkedIn user, 80% of our children in some areas struggle to read by 4th grade.
Yep.
What do you wish more Americans understood about this crisis?
That's an easy answer. So it's what they individually can do, right? So you as an individual, and this is the system that we're building, can develop a relationship with a child, right? And it sounds like, oh, okay, I'm just one person, right? But if everybody thought that way, sure. But imagine if people started thinking the other way, right? Thinking that, what, if I reach out and I read for an hour a week with a child and I develop their interest in reading, I've now changed one life, right? And then when you multiply that across all the Fortune 500 companies, right? Multiply that across Jack and Jill and the Nesby and the Hispanic sororities, fraternities, African American, the Divine Nine, right? And you get those people together, you're like, you know what? Now we just talked about 600,000 people.
Yeah.
Right. That's a completely different situation than one person stepping up. It's a village.
It is. And Daddy said, preach, Jahmal, preach.
Yes.
Gracias. And I know, because just to make that trend, you talked about that you spent 20 years in software engineering and technology. And what was the inspiration to just say, hey, I need to go to nonprofit? How did that come about? What was it?
That's a great question. So I first of all, let me just back up a little bit. This whole nonprofit was really my mother's vision, right?
Okay.
So unfortunately, she passed a few years ago from mesothelioma. And when she passed, she said, Jahmal, I want you to turn, she used to call it guilt money. She said, I want you to turn this guilt money that these companies that gave me cancer, they're going to write you some pretty big checks. And I want you to take those checks and start a foundation to teach kids how to read. And at the time, I said, Mom, I'm an IT guy. Like, why do you want me to? But of course, I said yes, right? And I realized that it was really about surrounding myself with people that knew a lot more about literacy than I did, and just taking the passion that I had for helping people that don't have and turning that into something pretty phenomenal. And I think now that we've been around, this is 5 years, we've given away maybe 200,000 books. We've started a one-on-one reading program, with a lot of Fortune 100 companies. I've realized that we're on to something. Like the relationships that we're building with these children have just been phenomenal. Scholastic has kept up recently with a gift of 300,000 books. Which is equivalent of about $3 million worth of books. Other publishers have stepped up, and I think it's really about just aggregating those resources.
That is amazing. No, that really is. I got a question. Somebody texted me. It was actually Yvette, and she said your mother played a pivotal role in the creation of Our Kids Read. How did her vision and that final conversation you had with her shape the leader you are today?
Yeah, my mother was a very interesting human being. So she was a revolutionary, right? She was a Black Panther. She was very outspoken. It's actually one of the reasons she did not get tenure at Iowa, is that I always just tell her, I'm like, Mom, you need to tell people how you feel about them after you get tenure.
Right.
But she told them before. So clearly, anyway, so she did not get tenure there, but it was because she was constantly preaching, and it really was preaching. That's why I laughed about the comment. How important it was to educate yourself about history, right? And educate yourself about how to take control of the means of production. And I think that, and it starts with education and literacy, right? And so I think that being drilled into me from, 5, definitely have played a role, listening to Stokely Carmichael and, reading Sonia Sanchez and all these other folks at a very early age, was incredibly powerful. Franz Fanon and others. So I was reading Franz Fanon at 9, right?
Wow.
And, asking, and when you grow up as a child of an academic, you're sitting around talking to other graduate students, who she's in her PhD classes with. So that's how you're growing up and that's what you're listening to. So I think having that background, I didn't have a choice, right? I didn't have a choice other than to be the person who I am, right? And, my wife always says, I need to sometimes tone down the strength of how I feel about these things, but it's hard, right? Because you realize the need and you realize how badly these babies need us. And it's scary, if you think about what 80% illiteracy means, and what it means for their future.
Yes.
Right? And what they're going to be able to do and not be able to do. It's a crisis. And I'm almost embarrassed that I didn't realize it, before I started this journey. But now that I do, it's like an imperative, to do something about it.
Wow. Jahmal, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, today's theme is the mentorship, and how do you define mentorship when we come off this break, and we'll take it right from there.
Fantastic.
It's the guts and it's the glory. 100 stripes, 100 stories. It's the Pledge of Allegiance on the 4th of July. It's them handwritten letters from home. It's them sleepless nights alone. It's his newborn baby he left with his wife. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down, here's a line. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes, hey. From the fields of Indiana to the swamps of Louisiana, to the golden coast of California, Uncle Sam's the only family he's got. His purple heartbeat won't stop, and his 18th birthday was the day he was born. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down, here's the light. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, stand on the front line. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, pay the ultimate price. Oh. He was the man of the house when he was born. His family is proud but torn. But if you knew him, you would understand. He was raised on how to be brave, just to see the flag still wave. And then he came home with only one hand. 'Cause Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down here to lie. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, stand on these front lines. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, he'll pay the ultimate price. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down his life. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. March in line, march in line. Hey. Hey.
the station where our veterans' voices are heard. MBR Talk.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. Welcome, Quack.
Program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
The web at mbradio.com.
Wow, welcome back, everybody. Hey, Jahmal. Hey, what do you think of that video, bro?
It was powerful.
It is.
Yeah, really was.
It always gives me goosebumps every time I see it.
Yeah.
Somebody said, your mom, she was a waymaker.
It's true. It's true. She touched a lot of people. I still get her students reaching out to me now, just expressing, hey, I see a lot of her in you, and I appreciate you carrying the mantle, which is exciting. Yeah.
And I have another question, but first we'll get into the mentorship. How do you decide what today's theme is? How do you define mentorship, Jahmal?
Yeah. Great question. So, I mean, this might sound a little hokey, right? But I believe what's going to save not just this country, but this world, it is love, right?
Yes.
It's love and it's community. And I think we've lost that somewhere. And I think we found a way to harness that in our program through mentorship. We found that it's really a two-way street. I used to think, hey, how am I going to convince these adults to take an hour of their life and read with a child, right? And then I realized, I said, you know what? These adults are getting just as much out of this relationship as the children are, right? They're being taken back to their childhood when, they read their first book, or their parent, read with them at night, right? They're getting to bond with someone and get to know this little person and really dive into not only what that child is reading, but we stress drawing from your experiences. So we don't want this to feel like school part 2, right? The idea is that reading buddies is a way for an adult to really round out the words on the page, right? So I had a great example. A friend of mine became a reading buddy early on in this program, and he was reading a book about this young boy in South Africa. I think it was in Johannesburg, and he was playing soccer. And on the fence behind him was a sign that said, like, no blacks allowed, or something about kafir. I can't remember the exact language, but he drew this wonderful comparison between apartheid in South Africa and Jim Crow and other prejudices that Black Americans faced in this country. And think about what that child in that moment, who was just thinking he was reading a book about soccer,
right?
Right? All of a sudden, this extra context and color and flavor is added to it. So I think it's mentorship. The short answer to your question is about love transference, right? It's about taking the love that you have and saying, you know what? I can actually increase the love levels of another child by simply reading with them for an hour, right?
Yes.
And that bond grows. We've had people read for over 3 years with their student, right? Think about it like big brother, big sister, but with a focus on reading, right? Right? That's really what we're doing, right? We're taking the concept of, let me mentor a child, and we're just adding reading to it. And it's so simple, right? You can do it from your tablet. Like we've had people read with their child when they're on vacation, right? They're on the beach with their tablet reading with their student. It's easy, right? And so that's what we're doing, is we're taking a very basic concept of love, and we're saying, you know what, we can make this digital thing actually warm and give it some value.
Wow. I don't know, Andrea, is that how you pronounce it? Lake?
That's my wife, yes.
Oh, okay. She said love and community. Yes. Yes. Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
The absolute best.
Thank you for that. And we have a question from a LinkedIn user. What reading strategies do mentors find most effective?
Great question. I think what we're seeing is that the co-reading, before someone even starts to read, and I'll get back to the exact question in a second, we give them training, right? Because a lot of people, even if they're aunties and don't have their own kids, they want to know, hey, is there a right way to do this, right? And of course, me being not the literacy guy, did not have the answer. So I went and I hired a group of folks that were literacy specialists. And so we went through all the different reading strategies and we created a set of videos that really walks a potential reader through, all right, you can read and the child can listen. If the child's a little bit of a stronger reader, you can let them read and then you can just encourage from the sidelines. Co-reading, where the child reads a paragraph or a sentence and then you read a sentence. What we've really found is that the co-reading is most popular. And at the very beginning, a lot of kids are shy, so they won't want to read, right? So the first session and a half, but then the key is finding what they love, right? And this is the important part of what we do. We don't tell the child what to read, right? We say the first session is just kind of rapport building. Right? It's who are you? You know, where are your parents from? You have pets? What do you do on the weekend? Like just getting to know them as a human being. And
yes,
I don't have to tell you be surprised. You probably wouldn't be surprised to know that just caring and having that child feel heard is so valuable. I mean, to all of us, right? I mean, even adults, like we appreciate being heard.
Oh, yeah.
But from a child who's experiencing trauma or who has experienced trauma, it's breath of fresh air doesn't even come close, right? It's life sustaining. And I think that's the first thing is figure exactly. It's figuring out what makes that child tick. Let's say, for example, Rich Child recently said he loved chess. And I play a little bit of chess, but I'm like a grandmaster.
Right.
And I said, who do we know that's available that has checked off chess in their profile, right? We found a young man who actually was pretty close to being a grandmaster. And these two just almost immediately clicked, right? They started using something Gambit and X. I don't know. It was above me, but it was beautiful, right? And so that's the idea is once you get them hooked, then they kind of come out of their shell, right? It's like a flower, you know, and it's a beautiful thing to see. And we record all the sessions, so it's wonderful to see the evolution of a child going from, oh, I don't want to be here. My mama made me do it. And I hate you. From that to, oh my God, I'm crying because my reading buddy can't make it today.
Wow.
Which is what we're seeing, right? We're seeing these relationships develop that are so powerful. So
that is so deep. And again, McDowell said the power words can be empowering. Absolutely. She's just right. You know, when we talk about presence, you know, it's so important as adults to be there for our youth and even adults. You're absolutely correct. That is such and I know one of the things that I've done, I work in hospice, in presence, being there as people transition means a lot to not only the individual, but the family, you know, so I can relate to that. We have a question from a LinkedIn user that says, you've partnered with major companies like Microsoft, Nike, Dell, and Amazon. What advice do you have for nonprofit leaders seeking meaningful corporate partnerships?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. So I'm going to answer it two different ways. I would say the first way is just the power of your LinkedIn network, right? And it's funny, I used to be a NTEU union steward when I worked, I don't know if I'm allowed to say, for a government agency. The one thing that our president used to say, her name is Crystal Maddox, she said, you'll never know if somebody wants to be a member if you don't ask. Right. And sometimes some people are just waiting to be asked. Right. And so that's what we're finding is that I don't want to make it seem easier than it is. It is very difficult. I think that's where the question came from. 9 out of 10 people are either going to ignore you or say no. Right. But it's that one person, right? That's all you need. And I think, and you also kind of know the power of your network, right? So if you have a weak network, and I want to say weak, and let's be real, right? The proximity to money is what matters these days. So if you know that the people around you are not in the C-suite, find people who are connected to the C-suite, right? Ask them to make some warm introductions for you. Like cold introductions on LinkedIn or via email rarely work. But if somebody feels a sense of responsibility, like, oh, okay, this is the friend of somebody who I know, they're much more likely to kind of introduce you to the right people. The second piece, the second answer to that question, which is more the financial piece, I would say it's very difficult, right? In this environment we're in, a lot of corporations are contracting. We're finding it more and more difficult to find corporate partners, and when we do, they're willing to partner with us for the volunteering part, but not necessarily for making a donation. And one thing I will mention for nonprofit folks out there, if you're not familiar with Dollars for Doers, it has really sustained us. So if you partner with a corporation, Google Dollars for Doers, figure out which corporations are Dollars for Doers. What it means is for every hour that that employee from that corporation volunteers, you will get a direct deposit on the 28th of every month equal to the number of hours that that employee volunteered times some multiplier.
Wow.
Right. So I'll give you an example. So if somebody from Microsoft volunteers for 10 hours with us, let's make it simpler. 1 hour a week, 4 hours, right? During a month. The Microsoft multiplier is $25, right? So that means that on the 28th of that month or the next month, you'll receive a direct deposit for $100. So now multiply that out, right? If you have 20 Microsoft people reading, the direct deposit's now $2,000, right? So it adds up quickly. So I would say that, full disclosure, not everybody records their hours. So you need to have somebody who is responsible for being the bugaboo to remind them to record their hours so you can get paid. But that's definitely a way to begin to encourage corporate partnership, is maybe by going in through an ERG. Like, because we have so many Spanish speaking students, I'll go to someone, let's say in IBM, and I'll say, hey, can you introduce me to the person who runs the Hispanic ERG at IBM? They'll introduce that person to me. I'll say, hey, can I give a presentation at your next monthly meeting? 9 times out of 10, they'll say yes, right? As long as it's a good cause. You know?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, people, of course, they're gonna be open to you pitching to their members, hey, will you volunteer here, or will you do this? So once you get a footprint and a foothold in that organization, you can then begin to navigate your way to the right people. I know that was a long answer to a short question.
Well, yeah, that is stupendous. Dollars for Doers. I definitely wrote that down so I can definitely share it. And I know we'll be getting in a little bit to slide, but ladies and gentlemen, you can see the website, ourkidsread.org. We'll be talking more about that. And also, if you need to get in contact, we have a number, and that is the number if you need to get a hold. And once we get, you'll see where we at. And we have another question here, and I think you'll probably be talking about that from McDowell. She said, I have a school who can use your help in the South Bronx. 40% of students are in shelters. Let me know where to sign up to volunteer.
I love it. Now, first of all, that's not unusual. And this was another kind of ivory tower moment. There are 3 ivory tower moments for me in this whole process. The first we already talked about, right, is that 80% of kids aren't reading in low-income communities, right? Second moment was realizing the percentage of illiterate parents. So I had a moment, and I'll get to the question in 1 second, when I was reading with a student. I was one of the first reading buddies, and I asked the parent to read something. And for the life of me, I couldn't understand why she was just looking at me. And then it hit me like, oh my God, she cannot read, right? And so, and I guess I should have thought, but I never knew the number was as high as 30%-ish.
Wow.
Like a third, right, of our parents are not literate to the point where they can really be an asset to their child. But in answer to your the question that was asked, yes, there is a volunteer button on our website. So if you go to ourkidsread.org, then you click on volunteer, there's a way to sign up to volunteer. And we do have a waiting list for schools as far as reading buddies, but you can also email reading@ourkidsread.org to get your school on the list. But we can make an immediate donation of books. I think that is something that we can do right away.
And we have another question from Lincoln Hughes. I think you may have. How can the community support Our Kids Read?
You know what? One of my board members, Dr. Wright, always says three things. He says time, talent, or treasure, right? And it makes it real simple, right? So time, which is reading with a student, taking your time, which is an hour a week for 6 to 8 weeks. Talent, which is donating your skills. So if you're a accountant or a marketing guru or whomever, right? Signing up to volunteer on the website, or treasure, so making a gift to the organization. Those are the three things we ask for.
All right. And if you want to go with the slides now, and we can, because I know we're getting questions, that way you can definitely talk about it. It's all you, Jahmal.
Absolutely. So yeah, so we're actually launching a new website in the next couple of weeks. We built this one maybe about 4 or 5 years ago when we first started. I'm still very happy with it. It gives a general sense of who we are and what we do. Right? We provide remote reading help, which means that in our pilot programs, we match students one-on-one with a reading buddy. And then we also, via our publisher partnerships, and I have to give a shout out to Scholastic because they are our largest partner and have been there from the beginning, donating at this point over 200,000 books to our organization. And we just signed an MOU with them in December. Where they pledged another 300,000 books. So I'm just incredibly indebted to Talia and Ava and the whole Scholastic team and Casey. Really appreciate everybody's support. So those are our two core programs. We also have a third, and I know you're going to get to this later, but an in-person, the country's, I used to say the country's only, but then I realized how that was incorrect. The country's largest free bookstore. We have over 50,000 books thanks to Scholastic, and we give them out every weekend in Baltimore, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. MCB Real Estate donated a space for us in Baltimore. So we've been doing that. And then we're also hopefully moving to a new space in the next month or so in downtown Baltimore. So this part of the website just talks about who we are and what we do, expanding perspectives, which I think is a core part of what we do, right? A lot of literacy just focuses on the words on the page, the phonics, the pronunciation, and yes, that's important, but we focus more on what's outside of the page, right? If you're reading a book about the environment, right? How did that happen? What can you as a citizen do to be a more responsible environmental citizen? We have honestly intellectual conversations with second and third graders, because we feel it's not too early, right? It's really sharing the depth and the breadth of our experience with students who wouldn't otherwise have this. And if you think about how powerful that is, like think about people, because I actually did some hospice care myself when I was younger, and think about the knowledge that's trapped in our elders.
Yes.
Right. Think about how much information, even if you're not what we consider classic elders in your 80s and 90s, even if you're my age, if you're 49, or if you're, whatever, we've been through something, right? We've experienced life, and that has value. And I think sometimes people know that and they're looking for an outlet. They're like, how do I give back or give of myself and show how amazing I am, right? Yes. And I think that's what we do, is we allow these mentors to transmit some of that energy and some of that power and some of that knowledge, right, to the children that they touch. And kids are beautiful, right? Kids feel energy. Yes. Kids can also tell when you're full of it.
Absolutely.
Right?
Our grandkids
so they
tell me all
know.
the time.
Yeah, kids know. And this is funny. I always what? Kids are like these antennas, So it's amazing when I see these relationships develop, and I see somebody I consider an amazing adult transferring that knowledge and that energy and that experience, and the kids just eating it up, and they're asking questions that are, to me, beyond their years. It's a wonderful thing. So I think the expanding perspectives and the socio-emotional part of what we do is incredibly powerful.
Cool beans.
And the self-esteem almost goes without saying, right? It's like a lot of times what we're doing, unfortunately, African American and Hispanic and Native American kids are disproportionately a part of that underserved group. So we're allowing young Black boys and young Hispanic women and young Hispanic men and Native American men to see mentors that look like them, because we're partnering with the ERGs and these Fortune 100 companies for that, relate to their community. So I think that's very powerful. Yeah, you have one part of my board on the screen. I'm so indebted to my board, right? They are just some of the most talented, accomplished folks, not just from the Princeton community, that's my alma mater, but also just from all walks of life. I just, people I've met professionally, people I've been introduced to, they help, create partnerships for the org, and I couldn't do what we're doing without them.
Cool. All right. We have a quick question from Zuli, and she said, "Do you also assist kids with disabilities? For example."
We do not. We do not. It's funny. Yeah. I mean, I would love to. I think, part of what my board does, it's funny you asked that question, Zuli. Zuli, good to see you. Zuli and I were co-workers at the OCC. Great to see you, Zuli. So I think something my board does is really just keep me in line, right? They tell me, because I want to help everyone, right? And what they kind of drill into me at every board meeting is, we have to stay on mission, right? It's that we have to stay on mission, which is, making sure that we, number one, connect children with mentors and develop a sense of community and help kids improve their literacy scores. If we're doing anything outside of that, it detracts from the mission.
Got it.
Right. And so, as much as people have asked me about dyslexia, people have asked me about what Zuli just asked me about, folks that are deaf. And what we usually do is we try to refer those students to resources that are actually targeted and meant to serve their particular community.
Yeah, she said yes. Yes, I get to you guys work together.
Yes. Good people. Sponsors. Yeah, the only sponsor I would say I would add to this list right away. I mean, we have this, like I said, this site was done about 5 years ago. So we're launching a new site next week. But Scholastic, I can't emphasize enough how grateful we are for the millions of dollars of books that they've donated. Petrucci Family Foundation was our first, oldest, and strongest partner. Really appreciate everything that foundation has done. And it's almost like when when you're at an award show and you thank certain people, then you don't want to leave other people out. No, we've just been so blessed to have a family that gets the importance of the work we do. There's a company in New Jersey who donated a 16,000 square foot warehouse. We wouldn't be able to do half of what we do, right, without that. So like I already mentioned, MTB Real Estate donating the space in Baltimore. We couldn't do what we do and touch as many people as we do without that.
Wow.
I could go on and on, but no, we're
very. That's amazing. That's amazing.
And the free bookstore. Yeah, I mean, this is really the crown, in certain respects. It's a model that I want to replicate around the country. I don't know. Did you know that publishers destroy millions of books every year?
No. Why? I mean, why do they do that?
So I'm still trying to figure that out. Oh. But my sense is it's cheaper to destroy them than figure out the logistics of getting them to places that can make good use of them. So,
okay,
I have this crazy vision, Jose.
Yeah.
I believe book deserts are solvable. I think that is a solvable problem. I think this is a logistics problem. This is not a book shortage problem, right? It's almost like farmers who destroy food 10 miles from a starving child.
Right.
It's like, and so what we've done is we've said, you know what? We think that there's enough commercial real estate where the commercial real estate folks, would get a tax benefit, from donating the free space. And there are enough publishers who are destroying books where we want to create safe havens for these books across the country, store the books, and then give them away for free, funded by family foundations and federal grants. So Baltimore is just the beginning. We're beginning to talk to the foundation community in Baltimore. So far, we've had some encouraging responses. But the idea is to create these in-person literacy hubs in Chicago, in New York, in Miami, in LA, starting in Baltimore, where families can come and get 10 free books on the weekend.
Wow.
As many weekends of the year as they want, right? And we're doing this. We gave away maybe 15,000 books over the last year. If we move to the new space that we're looking at closer to 30 or 40,000 books just from that one location.
That is stupendous. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my goodness. And the question about the volunteer. Here you go.
Yeah. So this is just access by clicking the volunteer link on our website and just fill in your information. Somebody should get back to you within a day or so.
All right. And let me see. There's some questions that came through. And Julie asks, I think we're talking about the disability. She said there's an opportunity there that is an underserved community. And then I know you had addressed some of that, but she wanted to put that out there. Let me see. And donations.
Yeah. So there should be a donate button in the upper right-hand corner of the website. I would say 75% of our support comes from individuals, some through the website, some through family foundations. But we're just we wouldn't exist, right? If it wasn't for people seeing the value of what we do and saying, you know what, I'm going to put my money behind my support. Not that we don't appreciate support. That's just support. But that's verbal, but we also appreciate gifts because it allows us to pay our people. We have a staff of about 14 people. It allows us to expand into new communities, pay the people that form the corporate partnerships, and keep the lights on in the warehouse.
Cool beans. And again, ladies and gentlemen, the website is screening below, so make sure you check it out. And last slide.
Yeah, how to connect. We're on all the major platforms, building up our followership. I think we have a few thousand users on Instagram. But yeah, scan the QR codes, follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, X. We're on all of them. It's either at Our Kids Read INC or at Our Kids Read. Those are the two handles that we use.
Yeah, and I think somebody have put LinkedIn user have put in that. I think it's the same one. Okay. So I want to make sure on that. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, make sure that you share this and so on, and so people can be made aware. And before we go out, I'll leave the last anything we didn't cover, Jahmal, to you. Anything you want to put out? Got a couple of minutes here, sir.
No, I just love your platform. I love your energy. I love your authenticity, and I'm just honored and humbled that you would have me on your podcast. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having. I think we can make a difference. I don't think people understand the influence of mentors have on people.
Absolutely.
Coaches and sponsors, but it's definitely mentor. And I know it started when I was a kid with my parents. I just didn't know that was what that was.
Yeah.
And coaches and so on. It was an amazing. But no, Jahmal, thank you so much for this. And I want to make sure there's no last minute question. Oh, MJ, one of my podcasts said, "Good evening, MJ. How are you?" Yeah. And but I just want to say gracias for and if you have any upcoming events, anything that we can support to push it out, please send it to me or my partner in crime, Yvette. But we're really honored to have you here, and anything we can do to push this so we can help out the next future that's coming up.
Really appreciate that, Jose. I think the last thing I would say is just the power of the individual, right? That we have to stop as a people thinking someone else is going to solve our problems. It's so important to just step up, right? And you can't tell me that you don't spend time either doom scrolling on your phone or talking to your best friend, about absolutely nothing or what it is. You have 45 minutes once a week to read with his child, right? So
absolutely,
that would be my only message, is that mentorship is so important, and just reaching out beyond your nuclear family, even if you're busy. And keep in mind, I am talking to a segment of our population that is able, right? I mean, if you're literally have zero left and you're just struggling, you know, to subsist and survive, I get that, right? But there's so many of us that have that hour, have that 2 hours, that don't feel that level of stress around survival. That's really who I'm talking to, right? I'm talking to folks who are, you know, in our what people traditionally call the middle class, or you know, do even better. You know, you have the time, right? So I think the bottom line is, do you want to step up in a way that's easy, right? And that would be my challenge: is these kids really need us?
Wow, no, that's some deep stuff. Absolutely, thank you, Jahmal, for that. And no other question. But before I let everybody go, I want to talk about our next guest coming up, and Jessica Flores. She's a social worker, a therapist, author, and advocate who has dedicated, como se dice, her career to helping people heal, grow, and discover the strength that already exists within them. And you know, she believes that every person has the potential to thrive. And throughout her private practice, she empowers individuals, particularly women and members of the LGBTQIA community, to embrace the truth, overcome personal challenges. So please join us next week for that. But again, gracias for Jahmal for being here. Really appreciate it. And please reach out. And when you write your book, you got a book out yet?
Not yet, man. You'll definitely have a chapter.
Yeah. We definitely. I don't know about that. And McDonald said we will spread the word, and that's what it's about. We're going to spread the word. And this has been stupendous, hermano. Gracias. You've inspired me for everything you do, and let's keep doing this and spread the word.
Yeah, thank you.
So I want to say thank you to ladies and gentlemen, for everybody who's been here. Spread the word. You know, there's the number one more time, 888-840. It's Reed, but the number is 7323. So make sure you take that down. And I want to say thank you to everybody, and have a great weekend, and be safe. Gracias.
Take care. Thank you.
Wow. All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.